Hello, welcome to the program, Like Nobody's Business. I'm Kristen McMillan. I'm the President and CEO of the Las Vegas Metro Chamber of Commerce. The Metro Chamber has been in the forefront of connecting leaders who are making things happen in our community, people who are innovative and driving our region forward. And these are people who run businesses, who run educational institutions, governments, and nonprofits. Real leaders with the fortitude to dream big and to make bold moves. People who are making things happen and making a difference like nobody's business, and we're here to showcase them. So today we're very, very happy to have with us Thom Reilly. And Thom is the newly appointed Chancellor of the Nevada System of Higher Education. And he comes with a very interesting and a varied background. Most recently, he was the director of the Morrison Institute at Arizona State University and also was a professor in the School of Public Affairs there. But he's not a stranger to Nevada. He has a lot of ties to this state, and he once was our Clark County manager, and he was the vice chancellor of the system, the health sciences system for the Nevada System of Higher Education, and also an entrepreneur and a business owner. He has a management consulting firm, or at least maybe he had it, and the Reilly Group, and also is an author. So I would say, Thom, that you're a real Renaissance man in our community, and we're so happy to have you back. Welcome back to Nevada. Welcome to the program, and congratulations on your new position.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for having me on your show.
You're so welcome. So let's start out sort of talking about what the Nevada System of Higher Education is. We know that it includes in the entirety of Nevada and all of our universities and our state and community colleges. But the job or the term chancellor seems to be probably a mystery to a number of people. Can you unmask that mystery here for us today and tell us what a chancellor does?
Sure. Well, before that, so the Nevada System of Higher Education is the only state public system of higher education, and it consists of our 2 state universities, 4 community colleges, a state college, and an environmental research institute. So there's 8 institutions. It was interesting is that when I was interviewing for the job, I did a series of public forums at actually each of the institutions. And I had some students come up to me during and after some of the presentations and say, you know, I really felt that this was important for me to go to because the chancellor, position seemed very important, but what is the chancellor? What does it do?
Exactly.
Which is a very good system. So, Nevada is a little unique in the way we set our higher education system is that we have all our institutions of higher education within one system. So unlike, let me use California as an example, they have broken out their research institutions, their universities, from their state colleges, from their community colleges. So they have 3 different systems of institutions. In Nevada, we have 1. And so, and what's also a bit different about Nevada is that we have an elected board of regents. And in many other states are actually appointed by the governor. In Nevada, they're elected, and we have 13 elected regents that are represent geographic areas of the state. They choose a chancellor, and they appoint the chancellor. So I am appointed by the 13 elected officials, and I am the chief, if you will, spokesperson. I'm kind of the cohesive body that works with all institutions. All the presidents report through me. So we have one message. We have a seamless system for individuals that transfer from the community college or the state college to the university system.
Well, thank you for that. So you have 13 bosses.
13 bosses.
Okay, that's only one of the many challenges you face. I am certain about that.
I always say it's a good thing is I have 13 bosses, and the bad thing is I have 13 bosses, right?
Right.
So I only have to upset 7 of them at one time to be in trouble.
That's very true. But you left a very prestigious position at ASU recently. So can you tell us what motivated you to come back to Nevada to take on this important challenge?
Well, as you have mentioned earlier, I have deep roots in Nevada. My home's still here. I always kept my home in Nevada. Actually, I've been working in Nevada since 1988. So I've worked in state government and the private sector and in the public sector for a long period of time. And the position at ARCU was a great position. I wasn't looking to leave. I was approached on the position. I initially declined, but after I had continued conversations with the regents and people in the community, for right now it was a good fit. It was a good fit, and I really felt that coming back I could actually make a difference. That there was enough. There's quite a bit of enthusiasm about moving the needle in higher education, improving some of our outcomes. So it made it a lot easier to come in with a lot of the support I had with the presidents, the regents, and the community.
So we do want to talk about how you are going to make a difference. But first of all, tell us about the first few weeks on the job. What do you see out there, and what are your initial observations, maybe your biggest surprises?
Well, I spent a lot of time, obviously, getting to know the regents. There are 13 of them, so there was some time just to be able to sit down there and listen to their concerns and their perspective and where they want the system to go, as well as the 8 presidents who have very challenging jobs running these institutions and ensuring there's good outcomes for students. So I've spent a lot of time listening, also in the community, and learning. There's a huge learning curve. So I'm trying to meet with individuals, get their perspective, and then try to formulate how we move forward. In the last month, I was able to go through we have 4 quarterly meetings, so I was having an opportunity to actually go through that process and how the agenda is built, what items are discussed. There are a lot of challenges, but there is a lot of consistent interest in moving forward. Probably one of the initial observations I've had that I've shared with presidents in the regents, having sat through one board meeting. As I mentioned, we only meet as a board 4 times, although they're special meetings. And I'm not convinced that perhaps we're discussing the most important issues at those meetings. Those gathering the 13 regions to discuss that, we really have to make strategic choices about what are the most important issues to discuss. So I am interested in looking about how items get on the agenda and how they surface. And are we allocating enough time in these public meetings when we have everybody together to be discussing those most important issues, those core issues that will move our system forward?
I think our listeners would be very interested to understand what those most important core issues are that maybe haven't been addressed as well in the past.
Well, I have, in October, we're having a retreat with the regents and the presidents to identify what our most important strategic goals are. What I hope to do is to identify those in October and then have them solidified, the metrics approved by January, so a very short period of time, and have those goals to guide our discussions with the legislature, the community, as well as what we discuss in the agenda. So I have started that conversation. Ultimately, this will be something that the regents, that is their purview, that is what an elected board of regents should focus on, this forward-thinking, strategic focus. But I've outlaid several that to begin the conversation. And the first one that I've talked about is we have to increase participation in higher education in Nevada. About 24% of 18 to 24-year-olds are engaged in any type of higher education. And I use that term very broadly. That's not just a university, that's not just a state college, it's not even a 2-year community college, that could be a certificate. So about 24% of our population are engaged in any type of higher education. The national average is over 40%. What we know is that access to higher education and participation in higher education is the single most critical adaptive function for success. And so what we're suggesting with those percentages is that we've relegated that access to 24% of our population. We have to figure out ways that we can increase participation and look at what those barriers are. And they're not just financial, is that whatever those life circumstances are, we have to figure out how to get them into higher education in some facet. That doesn't mean you have to have a 4-year degree, but given the demands and the changing workforce, we need certificates and there are a skill set that individuals need in order to succeed. Now, that's only half the battle, is that once you get individuals in the higher education system, it's student success. It's actually getting the completed degrees, whether it's a 4-year degree, 2-year degree, certificate, graduate degree. That's another metric that we fall and lag behind nationally. And so that's a complicated issue. Obviously, our K through 12 system is critical, that are those individual young people who are graduating either career ready or ready to go into higher education. So many of our institutions, particularly at the community college level, have to spend a good deal of time in remedial education and ensuring that they can be successful. But what happens when individuals enter and you convince them that it is possible to get a degree, not achieving that has significant consequences, not only financially, but just for life. And so when we get them in, we have to really figure out how they can be successful and how they can get degree completion.
Can you go into a little bit more detail? What are the barriers in terms of access to education here in Nevada? I mean, do we have any unique problems here that aren't being experienced elsewhere? Or?
Well, I think there's a couple. I think for one is that we've had industry, whether it's mining, whether it's gaming, that individuals who leave high school can get good, high-paying jobs. And for many young people, there's financial issues that clearly are a barrier, but for many young people, it's helping them explore the possibilities, that it is possible. I mean, it's why we have such a large focus on first generational individuals who parents did not go on to higher education. Because once you can break that barrier, the likelihood of their children going is much greater. I used to use this example, is that during the past year, I had two young people stay with us, a young kid from Mexico and one from the Czech Republic as exchange students. And the young man from the Czech Republic, it was not even a question whether he goes on to higher education. He never even thought of not going because it was so ingrained. The young man from Mexico had faced some financial barriers. And he enrolled in community college when I was leaving, and a couple of his friends he played soccer with came in there too. And for Jose, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. Within the 2 years, he was going to take 60 hours and he was going to go on to Arizona State University and complete his 4-year degree and get his master's. He had it all planned out. His friends didn't know why they were going to be there. Because they were convinced that they entered community colleges. But for many young people, they just don't know what the possibility is, and they don't know what their skill set is. They don't know what they're going to be good at. So part of the challenge is not only is convincing them is that there are possibilities, and perhaps that first certificate or the 2-year degree can lead to something else that they never imagined. So there's a good period of time, both in K through 12 and in high school, is talking to young people and developing different pathways. And talking and helping them decide what their pathways are, whether it's just a certificate or a trade. And I think at the K through 12 level, there's struggles. There's struggle with counselors and whether they have enough time to be spending the quality time they have with young people. That's why I think this mentoring is something I've always been a big fan of, because the results, empirical results, is that once you have mentors for success in life is indisputable. And I think with higher education is that we really have to hook a lot of these young people up to mentors so they can explore some of their possibilities.
Right. One of the things that we celebrate in this community is our diversity. And I know that I believe it's UNLV and maybe Nevada State College as well were recently recognized on a national basis for being one of the most diverse, if not the most diverse university and college system in the entire United States. Is there an achievement gap between minority students and white students? And if so, how do we work towards closing that gap?
In fact, that's another one of the goals that I have thrown out there, is that it's interesting, the Nevada system of higher education, our entire system, is now a majority-minority system for student enrollment. Which is pretty significant. It is true that U.S. News and World Report just recognized UNLV as the most diverse undergraduate baccalaureate program in the United States. It's actually tied with Rutgers and Andrews University out of Michigan. So as a system, a majority-minority system, when we start looking at the metrics, particularly, and it's a lot of unrepresented groups, minority being one, veterans being the other, there is a significant gap, particularly with white students, that we have to have more laser focus on. I mean, one is I think we need to talk about them more, is why I'm pushing so much to identify these goals about participation, about student success, about closing the achievement gap, about workforce issues, about research and raising our research profile. We have to really talk and be honest to where we're at now. And then what we need to do is develop, that is where our discussions need to be. That is where our work needs to be. And we have to have laser focus. We have to make choices and strategic choices that we're going to focus on these issues, and others that may be important or may be interesting, we're going to move on.
Right. Obviously, you're very passionate about it. I really think you are the right person for this job at the right time. I wanted to talk for a moment about degree completion, because we were lucky enough to have you at our Las Vegas Metro Chamber luncheon last week with Superintendent Pat Skurkowski. And he talked about the achievement, the increasing achievement in terms of student graduation rates in the K through 12 system. What about in higher education? Where are we in the mix of degree completion at this point, and what are your plans to increase that?
Well, we're kind of, the high of UNR, we're actually at what the national average is on at least undergraduate degree completion. And we have struggles throughout the other institutions, as you pointed out. When we break it down to different minority populations, the gap is even wider. One thing that I wanted to do is actually look at, I think it's really a challenge when we start comparing UNR to our community college. There are different systems, there are different populations of students, and there's different outcomes on those. What I wanted to do is really be clear on what peer institutions. When we look at, for example, CSN, our community college down in Southern Nevada, we need to use that as a peer with other urban community colleges. That comparing that to university, I think, isn't very helpful, and it doesn't really help us measure where we need to go. So I think one is getting these clear metrics to peer institutions, and then talking about what it is that's needed when a young person comes in to actually complete it in a certain period of time, whether it's 4 or 5 or 6 years, so hopefully closer to 4 than 6. And then talk about what are those supports. So one is that when they're coming in there, are they, do they have the type of skills and knowledge to pass basic math and English? If they don't, then what type of remedial education? Whether it's a decision if they're applying for the university, maybe they're best suited for the state college or the community college. So I think that once we have those metrics, we need to talk about where the best fit for these young people are, or for any student that comes in there. And then talk about what are the supports that are actually needed. The counselors, the remedial education, resource centers. So when a student is struggling with math or English, they can actually go and get tutored with faculty and others to help them. And in some sense, it's not rocket science, is that there have been very successful models that have been developed nationally where they have improved student success with a laser focus on the type of, one is that we're admitting to the right institution, and two is that we're building the support systems that make individuals successful.
So we at the Metro Chamber represent the business community, and we always say that businesses are the largest customer of education, whether it be K through 12 or higher education. So how do you see the business community working with higher education better to make sure that we build the skills in our students that we need for the workforce of the future, because we have to remain very, very competitive with other regions and even globally?
Well, that's a very good question, which goes to another goal I talked about, is us aligning with our workforce issues. And it's not just ensuring that we are meeting the needs of current industry, but we need to be more forward thinking about what is the skill set that the workforce will need in 5 years, which will be radically different than it is today. And so we need to be partnering closer, and I think we've done a lot of good work with the industry. A lot of our community colleges, which are much more nimble, have been successful in developing partnerships with Tesla and Panasonic and a lot of others to develop specific skills and certificates to produce career-ready individuals into the industry. But I think at our universities in particular, we need to be more forward-thinking about the type of skill set. And I think that really forces us to be more interdisciplinary. I think our typical response in higher education, and I'm a faculty member, I ran a department, is that we tend to be siloed in thinking of our discipline as helping solve problems in the community or help respond to industry challenges. And it doesn't work. The challenges are too great. The problems are too wicked. What we need to do is have a much more interdisciplinary approach to problem solving in industry. And I get concerned sometimes that we've built our silos and reward systems and tenure systems on these structural silos that have challenges in working across disciplines. So the business community, I think, one is that we have to have honest dialogue and have partnerships. And we've been doing that. We need to build stronger to start talking about what it is, the skill set that they're looking for individuals that come out. And I think that's basic trade and skills, but it's also at the 4-year level, the ability to solve problems. One thing I always looked at as an employer, because I taught in public administration, but I also was the largest employer of individuals. And what I look for is that not that they're just good financial managers and business managers or getting that textbook and experience to do that, but individuals that have the ability to have soft skills and can problem solve and work across boundaries. It's easy to manage someone when, or manage resources when you have control. It's much more challenging to manage people and resources you don't have control over. But that is the skill set that I look for as an employer. So my feedback to the institutions is that you're getting the hard skills down, but you're missing these soft skills, and that is what success is for someone who's successful. But that helps us solve problems.
And that's something that you really can work with the business community on. For example, the Metro Chamber has a foundation, and our foundation is committed to developing leaders and working on those soft skills.
Let me add one more on this
sure.
business stuff. So a really concrete example around the business community is that we have several programs. One is the Nevada Promise, which is a last resort program for after you've exhausted all your financial resources. It's geared towards our community colleges. We're piloting with graduates of 2018. They have to, by October 31st, to fill out the deadline. But here's the key, and here's the rub. In order to get this resources, they have to do 20 hours of community services, but they have to have a mentor. So a CSN or our community college in Southern Nevada, for example, need a minimum of 800 mentors. And that's not a lot of time. But having business industry folks team up with these young people, twofold. One is to help them explore their possibilities, but just give some perspective about what it is to be successful is incredibly important. So, kind of a plea right now is that if we can really hook up individuals from the business community and take 1 or 2 or 3 or have their business sponsor some of these young people in those high schools. Because one is that they need it to get the financial assistance, but one is that the dividends you pay are just tremendous when you can have that one-on-one connection with a young person and help them figure out how to move forward and be successful in life.
I think that's great information for our businesses, and certainly our business organizations in this state and in Southern Nevada in particular. I'm sure will be very excited about supporting you in that process.
Good, thank you.
At any rate, I mentioned at the beginning that you are an author, and I understand that you've written 4 books. I know that I've read part of one of them. I can't say I read every single page, but very impressive. So tell us what books are.
Well, the last book I have it's called The Failure of Governance, and it's about the story of some pretty horrific corruption that occurred in a small town in Bell, California, which is one of the cities out in Los Angeles County. And so I kind of did a deep dive, and what kind of struck me is that I was kind of just blown away is most corruption cases nationally, it involves just an individual or select individuals. In the town of Bell, anybody that could have done something, should have done something, were either part of it or burying their heads. And so what I was really intrigued about is that how did you have this massive amount of corruption that was just obscene from any optics that you looked at? A town of 28,000, mostly Latino immigrant community, and the city manager is making $1.5 million. Yeah, you heard me right, $1.5 million. And I really wanted to talk to the individuals and really kind of look at how did this happen? And part of that was there was no media there. They had stopped, the Los Angeles Times had stopped covering many of the cities because of cutbacks. And what you had is you just had no transparency in government. Which led to this just really exploitation of the city that they'll be paying years and years to try to get out of the debt.
Okay, Very good, very interesting. So, Thom Reilly, we are so honored to have you here today.
Well, thank you, and I look forward to working with the business community too and furthering our goals in higher education.
Yes, and we're really fortunate that our regents were so persistent in getting you here after you declined the first couple times.
They've been wonderful to work with, and they have been just nothing but supportive.
And we look forward to working with you as well. So this concludes today's program with Thom Reilly, and please connect with us at the Las Vegas Metro Chamber. Go on our website, lvchamber.com, or follow us, like us on social media at LV Chamber. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.